Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report after hours, and we needed it tonight. There's a lot to talk about after this loss. 118-94 to the Cavs. Game 2 series now tied at 1-1 apiece, and it was a bad one. The Celtics benched their starters with 5 minutes left, give up a 24-9 run to start the fourth. The third quarter, not much better. Celtics fall to 11% from three in the second half. Can't make up any ground in that final frame after going into halftime tied. And it's that series of runs. No Dalzell here, Josue Pavon. Going into halftime, Cavs went on a run. Going into the third quarter, they built that advantage, and then they extended into the start of the fourth. This just ends up being a disaster. The transition defense, bad early. Half-court defense sometimes, especially when the Cavs got to pick and rolls. Evan Mobley, the drop-off passes to him. Cavs wanted to go there early and often. Shoot 10 for 13 in that opening quarter. And then you go into the second half, and it's just Jayson Tatum falling to 40% from the field again. Derek White, others not able to pick him up this time. And the offense just completely stalled. So this was bad all around. The focus is going to be Tatum, and we'll get into him again here. But everybody played poorly tonight. Horford gave them some shooting. Pritchard gave a little energy off the bench. But overall, the Celtics didn't show up tonight.
They didn't. No, they didn't. And of course, the shots didn't fall, which didn't help. But that's when you're supposed to make your adjustments, right, Bobby? I just think the Celtics didn't do that, and especially
they tried
when it
with
came
Tillman and some of that other stuff, but it didn't work.
But for the most part, I just think the third quarter is when things really changed, and I think everyone in this building knew that Donovan Mitchell wasn't going to have, 7-point performance, right? We all knew going into that second half he was going to flip a switch. He does this. This is exactly the reason why they're in this position to begin with, because of that game 7. I'm going to go into my takeover mode, but I think what he did that especially affected what the Celtics were trying to do in the sense of combating that was getting everyone else involved and seeking high percentage shots to do it. This isn't like the Miami loss in game 1, right? Or game 2 rather, right? This is different because it wasn't like, they just can't stop making 3-pointers. No, these guys were executing offensively, going to their big, seeking high percentage shots. It was relatively close until the second half where everything just jumped open because of one, Donovan Mitchell going off the way he did, and especially in that third quarter, or at least at the Cavs as a whole, just knocking down 7 3-pointers in that third quarter, but then also continuing to pour it on in the fourth. And I don't blame Joe Mazzulla for pulling his starters. What was it, the 5-minute mark of that fourth quarter? Because did any one of us feel like there's a comeback there?
They're never 24.
It wasn't
point,
there.
So.
They got the flagrant foul, and that was it. So.
Right. But, I mean, he was asked about it, and I was kind of like, I wasn't surprised he did that because I didn't think they deserved to be out there. The game was done on to game 3. You only have a day in between moving forward. So all that stuff, it matters at this point. In this second round series where compared to the first round, you had a couple more days to prepare.
Mitchell scored 16 of Cleveland's 36 in that third quarter, hit a buzzer beater 3 to cap it off. Josue mentioned it. They went to the rim tonight. I thought it was interesting this morning, a shoot around, a lot of buzz. Cavs shot 80% at the rim in that game 1. And they went right back there to start this one. Mobley was amazing tonight, and I've been very critical of him. They looked for him. They got him in a rhythm, and he devastated the Celtics inside. Got a hook shot off early, a couple dunks. Then he hit a 3, and you're like, all right, here we go. He passed well, and of course he defended well. And you saw, again, the Cavs here. They just took guys off Horford. They took guys off some of the perimeter players for the Celtics on offense, and that's what leads to Tatum really struggling in this game. Again, they get a shot off.
Yeah, I think it didn't come up post-game, but I actually thought they really missed Porzingis tonight. And it's not an excuse. I mean, they've been playing shorthanded teams. Cleveland's without Jared Allen, who's probably relatively even more important to that team than Porzingis is. But defensively, I think the players that how we've grown to rely on didn't have it. I don't think Al Horford or Luke Kornet protected the rim the way that Porzingis would have. You could feel his absence. It was noticeably missing. And Tillman gave them some good minutes. I was actually surprised that they didn't go with him a little bit longer.
The offense, he couldn't be a threat out there. And that's what leads to the Cavs shying away from other guys. They can easily do that. And there's just so much attention on Tatum right now, and that's a huge issue.
On that note, just because I don't know that Luke Kornet was much more of an offensive threat tonight, and when they went back with him in the second half, I thought this wasn't Luke's night tonight. Game 1 was, Game 5 was. He's had plenty of good moments in this postseason. He just didn't have it tonight defensively in the same way, and I thought that I was surprised they didn't go with Tillman further. It's not a critical point here, but yeah, overall, I thought that the Celtics just were flat from the jump, but also that Cleveland played a really good basketball game. And I know that I always have the positive spin on things, but I think that it is important to note that we are in the second round of the playoffs. There's 8 teams left, and Cleveland, maybe he's not the most salient opponent here, and maybe they squeeze by a Magic team that, it was not the hardest first round matchup, but they played a really good basketball game today, both defensively and offensively. And so these things happen. I don't love how the Celtics responded to it. I think the Celtics could have maintained their composure a lot better and not gotten blown out.
Yeah.
But I also thought Cleveland played a nearly flawless game, honestly. So that's a big part of it.
It brings up bad memories. The home losses, big part of last year's struggles, the defensive lapses into the playoffs, and certainly those weird second halves where they just seem to get taken out of the game. You saw that weird body language, the lack of energy and fight in the fourth quarter. It's concerning, and they're probably going to bounce back in this series. They're probably going to win this series, but the continued trend right now, and we talked about it a lot after game 1, and I think tonight it became a lot more salient, the struggles of Jayson Tatum.
Right.
He can't get to his spots right now. Going to the rim, he found some success, 10 free throws in the first half, but then just 1 in the second half very shortly after halftime, and he was trying to shoot himself out of those struggles in this game and just couldn't do it. And he didn't have the support of Jaylen Brown this time, the support of Derek White this time. And they needed the scoring, finishing with just 94 points. They need him to get going, and he just couldn't. So I asked him after, anything physical here? He didn't answer that.
He said no. He said no. He said no.
All right, so nothing there. I think that's a concern we've had, maybe the ankle lingering. I don't know what to say at this point. There's obviously an enormous amount of pressure on him from the defense right now. But they need him. They need him to be better. Your best player has to be better in this series.
Yeah, no question. I think this is when it begins to become a problem, right? I couldn't get over the whole game 1. Yeah, that's great. The Celtics blew them out. They're coasting right now, or at least it seems like it. Those 3 wins in a row. But what's up with Jayson Tatum? Because I was just saying, look, this hasn't translated into a loss. Now it has. And am I worried? Not quite, but yes, he has to respond in a big way. And hopefully we see that in Cleveland. I don't know if it matters much to him or if he even remembers. I'd love to ask him about it once we get there, but it's where he started his career. His very first NBA game was in Cleveland. I think a lot of what the narrative is in the sense of, if you're a great player, you have to be putting up 35 points in the playoffs, or if your team was the best team in the NBA for most of the regular season, you shouldn't be losing to the Cavaliers by 25 points. I get why he's frustrated in the sense of, okay, well, look at the accolades, and look at who Coach of the Year is and who the MVP is, or where he fell down, outside the top 5. I don't take that quote as in he's salty about it. I look at it as well, why are they held to such a high standard and that they cannot lose by 20 points in the playoffs? Why is that so unthinkable, for that to happen? And then, of course, Tatum shooting and his percentages, that doesn't help. But that was going on beforehand, and the Celtics were still winning these games. So, now there's a concern. You wait for them to bounce back. But I just hate this characteristic of the Celtics where it's they have to get, handed one of the worst losses that we've seen in a while for them to respond in a big way, which I think will definitely happen in Cleveland.
Well, let's hear that quote from Tatum here after the game.
I mean, that's the narrative that you might see on TV, the idea that we have a super team. It's twofold, right? We didn't have the Coach of the Year. We didn't have the MVP. We only had 2 All-Stars. So they say we're a super team, but, we didn't get rewarded like we are. But, we know we got a good team. We're not perfect. We play the right way more often than not. And we know we got to be better. But, for, I guess, saying people that are spoiled from our success, we don't pay attention to those things. We just go out there and control what we can't control.
So we've heard it before, the expectation that they're supposed to win every game, win by a lot. He's mentioned that. I think that stems from Joe's mindset that you don't have expectations about how it's going to go. You're going to face adversity, you're going to face hard teams, and looked at past playoff teams to say, other teams won championships and had bad losses like these, bad moments. It's point to even the 08 Celtics in that regard. So I get that part of it. to go to awards though.
Yeah, you hate that he said those awards, and that's the part that everyone's gonna be fixated on all morning in
Like
Boston.
why? No one
Can I-
even
can I-
asked about
Stay
it.
tuned because that's gonna be the talk of the town.
Can I defend him though? Because okay, here's the thing with
Yeah, we could
Jayson
tell you want
Tatum.
to defend him though. Go ahead.
Okay, but here's the
Go
thing
ahead.
though. Okay, he sits through these press conferences after almost every single game, and he's been shooting poorly for a while now. And every single
Right.
game, he has to answer these questions around his shooting struggles and around whenever they lose, it's like a frenzy, right? That's a media
Yeah.
frenzy in Boston. Everybody's shredding him. Everybody in the national TV is shredding him as well.
That's the thing.
And I think ultimately, like, I understand the player frustration from they've had 5 blowout wins now in the playoffs.
Mm.
When they blow out teams, we're all bored, and then we're talking about his shooting struggles. And then whenever they lose, it's like the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
So it was a bad loss. It was as bad as it gets. They lost by
Yeah.
28 to the Cleveland Cavaliers. It shouldn't have happened. But I think he had a moment of frustration. You know, he's being asked about getting their ass whooped, like all these different things that he's supposed to like keep his composure and just give another answer about like, you know, we're just gonna stay ahead, stay the course. These token answers we don't want. He actually said something that was like quotable, and now he's getting roasted for it. He shouldn't have brought up awards, but I also think that he makes a good point in the sense that like this team's expectations have been through the roof from the get-go to the point where anything outside of a championship is viewed as like a choke for this roster.
I
don't
get
think
it,
the championship though. I mean, yeah, you're right in that sense that if they don't win it all, people are going to say, "Oh, well, this is what we've seen it coming the whole time." However, I think what it really boils down to though is people just want to see like Tatum just like going off every single night in the playoffs, and that's not always the formula for winning. You know,
that's not the way this team is built though. Like I actually
that's a
think
good
that
point. Yeah,
we've seen games where Brown
I
or
think that's where
Tatum
the
go for
frustration comes
40.
from.
Like in Charlotte earlier in the year, Tatum had a huge game. They lost that game.
yeah.
Jaylen Brown explodes against Denver and they lose that game. Like I think their best games are not those performances. Game 1 was great.
Right.
Game one was a great offensive blueprint, and the media cycle was about Tatum's struggles. And so that's the guy that you're seeing there giving that quote. Like he's frustrated. I understand it from a human lens. I just think that we got to cut him some slack too if he says something that's a little bit off of like the perfect response that he's supposed to give. Because I don't think
here's my frustration.
I just feel like though the people who question Tatum in a sense of like does he care about personal accolades and that stuff, like this is that fuel,
MVP
this
voting.
is that fuel that they need, you know, to say like, aha, see, he does really care about that stuff.
The
you know?
MVP voting came out yesterday, and what did he finish? 6th?
Sixth.
He's at the top 5. Yeah,
sixth.
I don't think he's crazy about that, but I
Right.
also don't think that he's losing sleep over it. I just think it's a matter of okay.
But it came out in the answer. No one asked him about awards.
Right, but I think what he's trying to say is a lot of what Noah's saying. It's just like it's almost like, okay, well, this is the way it looks. You know, I may not be shooting my best, but we're winning, and that's what really matters. Whereas the New York Knicks can have almost a 500 record in the playoffs, and everyone like, oh, look out for the Knicks. They're amazing. The Boston Celtics still have well beyond a winning record in the playoffs. You know, by the longest margin out of any other team in the NBA, and it's still not enough just because Tatum's got to be shooting 45%. He's got to be making 38% of his threes, and he's got to average like 34 points a night. It doesn't always translate that way, especially with this team when you have other weapons and you have that depth. No other team has that depth. So I think it's tricky to pinpoint Tatum's shooting and say, oh man, he's got to turn this around because the Celtics could be in trouble. Maybe, but I'm not ready to hit the panic button yet.
He needs to play better. I think that's all there is.
He does need to play better. That's right. But I don't think it's a matter of like, man, you know, he's the reason why the Celtics, you know, this series is tied 1-1.
The expectations are high, and so when you go against a team that you're a 12-point favorite against at home, that you just blew out by 25, if they lost, it's not that they should never lose. It's not that they didn't win by 25. They came out here and got blown off the floor.
Yeah, but the team did. I don't think it's a matter
and
of
that's
Tatum
a good
went
point.
out there.
The whole team,
like
played
we
bad
were
tonight.
saying a couple of nights ago, like it wasn't like a February 22nd type of thing. You remember when Tatum used to go like 2 for 22 or whatever, or like when he felt like he had to shoot, he felt like he had to go out there and put the team on his back. He knows that he has help, and that's just not smart basketball to put all of that pressure on himself.
I just don't get why we have to fixate on him in particular. And I know that he's the superstar.
Because he's the leader.
I mean, not necessarily.
Well,
though. Is he
that
the leader?
no.
Your best player.
To me, is that, and also because Brunson's having that big night, or Halliburton, like all these stars across the league, but they don't have the same team that
this
Tatum
team
has.
is built different, though. This team is not built that it's him, you know, taking 30 shots, whether or not he has it, he has to get it going. Like every single player shot poorly today. Peyton Pritchard was the only one that shot above 50% from the field. So like
Yeah,
Jaylen Brown had a bad shooting night. Derek White missed the rim on multiple attempts. Like that was wild to
took
see.
some bad shots.
Yeah, he took some bad shots. He took
Yeah.
heat check shots that like were very strange.
And
to see.
defensively, they put him
He
on.
did
the
just
island.
score 25 points.
Yeah,
in 3
no,
straight
I have no
games,
problem with the shots that he took, but I'm just saying that like they lose as a team, but then when they win,
What's
they
up with
win
Tatum?
beside, but then he didn't play well
Yeah,
still.
yeah.
That's my frustration with the narrative around it. And again, it doesn't matter because the narrative is the narrative, and what's going to matter is how they perform in Game 3. But I do think that every time they lose, we had the same conversation after Game 2 versus Miami, and they came out and blew them out 3 times.
So this one was a little different to me because they just got outwilled tonight. It wasn't an extraordinary shooting night by Cleveland. You had the 23 threes
like
in
that was
Heat
different
game.
from
I think they got a little
Miami.
outwilled in Game 2 versus Miami too.
A little
Those
bit,
closeouts
yeah,
were
for sure.
on a rewatch where there was
And
that's true.
And that's what's concerning me now too a little bit is the defense is starting to lapse. Joe Mazzulla admitted that tonight as well. He admitted that came from missing shots. And so this, however you want to put it, was a mentality loss, an effort loss at times, and being able to stay in the game. A game like this is important. I think defense, as I said on the postgame show, is how you do that. They need to become a more solid defensive team. They need to increase the aggressiveness of their scheming right now because right now they're just sitting back, watching guys pull up for shots. How many times did Darius Garland and Mitchell just step into wide open threes in this game? And I know they don't want to go to the mid-range, which is why they're kind of sitting back and allowing some of that. But you got to get more into that switching.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned Tillman. Good try and adjustment.
Yeah.
Good try
I will
and
say also
adjustment.
on the Garland threes, I think one of the things that are like a little underrated is when they're giving them those open threes, now you're getting Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell hitting the really tough ones. Because a lot of times they've pointed to like, well, they started hitting tough shots. It's always the tough shots after they got like 7 wide open shots and got in rhythm.
Right.
And I'm sure when they watch film, they'll all be saying that too. But
yeah, I mean, there was a couple of plays where I felt like Derek just didn't even close out on Darius in that third quarter. It was like 2 threes, and I'm sitting there like, where did this come from? Like, where did this attitude come from?
There
This
were pick and roll coverage lapses. The transition defense was horrendous.
One of them was a foul because he tried to get over to the screen. And of course, I think he fouled Mitchell. He went to the line for 3. But before that, like there was 0 to no resistance. I mean, close to no resistance on Darius Garland, and he can get going, man. I know he's been a streaky, especially in these playoffs. He hasn't been his best, but he can start cooking, and so can LeVert. And that's exactly what happened.
Cavs are 4-0 at home. What do you expect in these games in Cleveland to look like?
I mean, I think the Celtics are going to win both, honestly. I had Celtics in 5. I'm not shocked at the Game 2 loss. Won't be shocked if they split them either. They're 4-0 at home, but they were all versus Orlando, which was a very inexperienced team that hadn't never played a playoff game. It's definitely not a road playoff game.
Sorry, Orlando.
I don't think the Celtics are going to come into Cleveland like afraid of that environment or afraid of the position that they're in. But they're going to need to have a completely different level of intensity. They're going to need to, I think Jaylen Brown said, last series is last series. He doesn't want to talk about it, but there are a lot of parallels here between the playing a team in Game 1 that was coming off of very little rest when they were very well rested, blowing them out, coming out Game 2, talking about how they're going to play a lot better their opponent, and then not really showing up to it. So, in my mind, I see a parallel in how they might respond here, but Cleveland has a lot more talent and a lot more firepower than Miami did too. So they might not relent as easy.
That's the big difference. They got Mobley. Allen, we'll see. Does he come back? But in the meantime, you do have a little bit more talent on this Cleveland side than the Heat had left at that point. Plus, no Porzingis.
Yeah, definitely. But I just think when the Celtics get their asses handed to them the way they did, they respond in a big way. So Game 3, I'd be shocked if they lose to Game 3. Game 4, I think, is the one where they're gonna have to really fight because these guys, that's what they do. Especially Donovan Mitchell, man. He doesn't give up. There's no way the Cavs even make it this far without him. Obviously, when you look at what happened in Game 7. But just overall, like that's just his mindset, especially in the second half, especially when he feels like his back's against the wall. Like the Celtics have to match that intensity, but it's got to be 1 through 5. It can't just be, if we limit Mitchell, then it's going to be a win. Like you have to send a message, and that starts from the very first quarter. And the Celtics did get out to that quick start, similar to what we saw in Game 1. And just like we saw in Game 1, the Cavs responded right back before the end of the first quarter. But this one was different. They got other guys involved, Mobley, Okoro. Like I just feel like a lot of these starters really had their confidence on a different level compared to what happened in Game 1 because they got their asses handed to them as well. So I just think these guys, yes, they're shorthanded. Yes, at times they're going to really struggle to manufacture points. What they did tonight was really surprising, if you ask me, nearly hitting 120. but the Celtics have to be better defensively. Like, there's no excuse for letting that type of stuff happen. I know the transition defense struggles a lot, especially against a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's one of the Celtics' weaknesses going into the series. It was just been a weakness of theirs throughout the course of the regular season. And playing against a guy like Mitchell, he'll make you pay, but you can't let the other guys get involved as well, especially 3 or 4 of those starting members, because the Celtics bench comes up thin. Outside of what we saw from Peyton Pritchard, I felt like Hauser was a ghost. With Al Horford in that starting 5, I mean, it's important. It's not really, really important. It's not like, oh, the best second unit is going to win the game for you. But I think it matters a little more when you don't have Porzingis out there for the Celtics.
We're brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to Prize Picks right now.
Came up big today.
Yes.
Outside the Celtics loss, but
Pritchard, we had Pritchard more.
Double-figure Pritchard, man. They had him at 8. That was rude, if you ask me.
And
the slump is over. Pritchard's back.
We had White less. We knew White was going to come back to earth a little bit, and they had him 18 in this one. So more good picks for Josue and I. It doesn't always happen, but it happens sometimes. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Get a 100% deposit match up to $100. And right now, this is big, especially where you can combine a lot of these and pick multiple players and multiple stats. Caitlin Clark's debut, which Noah's going to be at, they are offering more or less than 0.5 points. And I think you know which way you got to go there.
Take more.
Oh, that's the bad one.
Yeah, so throw that in there with all your Celtics, more or less, predictions, and even the other NBA playoff games going on right now. Round 1's over, but round 2 still providing plenty of opportunity for Prize Picks. Go over there, pick 2 players or more, pick more or less on their stat predictions, and you're good to go. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Again, use that code CLNS for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Show some love to our great leisure golfwear partner, PXG. They're offering a discount on your first purchase when you use our code Garden Report. Go over there, warming up. It was a great week weather-wise, perfect week for some golf. And their style is just going to make you feel good out there, look good, and hopefully play good too with that. So hats, polos, shorts, whatever you want, it's all over there, pxg.com. Use the code Garden Report. Of course, game time. You heading to Cleveland. It's a game 5 here now, 2 after this loss tonight. So get $20 off your first ticket purchase over there when you download the Game Time app. Deals right up to and even past the opening tip. Bruins going to be playing here soon enough as well. Game times for all your concert, sports, whatever event needs. Go over there and use the code CLNS to get $20 off your first purchase. Of course, terms apply. It's Game Time, code CLNS. He's Josue Pavon. She's Noah Dalzell. Ton to talk about from this one. We're going to have conversation continuing through tomorrow, and then we're touching down in Cleveland. All 3 of us going to be out there for Celtics Cavaliers game 3. Get ready for a late one, 8:30, probably an 8:40 tip-off in Cleveland. So
flying the same day too.
Get some rest for this weekend. You're going to need it. Celtics need it too. Bad loss tonight. We'll see how they bounce back off this one because this was not pretty. Thanks for these guys breaking it down. And I'm Bobby Manning. This has been a late night edition of the Garden Report.